Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to swatch out the cadmium colors from Daniel Smith. These are actually cadmium-free colors, so they are not made with cadmium, the toxic heavy metal. And this word here, hue, suggests to us this is made with a mix of pigments to mimic the look and behavior of cadmium colors. And for this particular color, cadmium yellow light, we have a mix of PY53, PY138, and PY3. Daniel Smith is not the only company that sells cadmium-free colors. Winsor Newton also has them, and some companies just don't sell cadmium colors at all. These are the 6 cadmium hues from Daniel Smith: cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium yellow deep, cadmium orange, cadmium red scarlet, and cadmium red medium. Cadmium colors are very vibrant and incredibly light fast. These are probably the most light fast colors besides the earth colors, and usually cadmium colors are opaque or semi-opaque, which is to say they are not that great when it comes to mixing with other colors because it's going to make the mixture opaque as well. Since this is not made with actual cadmium, I don't know how light fast this paint really is. But I guess you can get an idea as to how light fast the paint is just by looking at the pigments used to create the paint. Right, let's swatch the cadmium colors to see how they look and how opaque they really are. I'm going to squeeze some paint here and just paint over this area. I may have added too much water, so let me add more paint here. This is cadmium yellow light hue. So this is actually quite opaque. According to Daniel Smith, they call this semi-opaque. So if you use a lot of paint, it's going to be quite opaque, such as this area here. Next we have cadmium yellow medium. So cadmium yellow light looks like lemon yellow, and this medium looks like Hansa yellow, and this is quite opaque as well. Again, semi-opaque. If you use more paint, you can almost cover the black. I did not press the record button for the earlier swatch. So that's cadmium yellow deep, which is semi-opaque as well, and this is cadmium orange. Looks nice. Cadmium red scarlet. Interestingly, all this paint, they have PY53 in them. And this is cadmium red medium. Oops, too much binder. Looks great. This is the only real cadmium color I have from White Nights. This is cadmium yellow, PY35. It actually looks very similar to Daniel Smith cadmium yellow medium. It's also semi-opaque. Let me add some white to cadmium red to see if I can actually make this more opaque. And it does seem like it's more opaque, but also the color, as you can see, it's washed out. It's more pastel-like now. So these are the Daniel Smith cadmium hues versus the original cadmium colors. I don't see any difference. So I guess Daniel Smith did a pretty good job with their cadmium-free colors. These are dry now, so here's a closer look. I guess you can paint an additional layer over this to make this even more opaque. But the thing is, these are not staining colors, so if you paint a second layer, you may reactivate the first layer. These are very vibrant colors. So if you need opaque colors, these are ones you can consider. My art is usually created with pen ink and watercolor. So I use watercolor so that the line art can show through the colors. I use cadmium colors occasionally for the opacity because these colors are great for covering other colors. So for example, with this sketch, the red dots here were actually painted with opaque Posca markers. I could have used cadmium colors to paint these dots as well, but it's just way more convenient to use markers. If you are to use transparent watercolor, the red will not be as vibrant because it's going to blend with the darker color or the muted color beneath. These are little flecks hanging above the street, and this would be more vibrant if I were to use cadmium colors. This, if I remember correctly, were painted with watercolor, but I use very thick paint to make the paint more opaque. Cadmium colors can be used together with gouache, since gouache is opaque as well. This is just a random sketch that I've drawn using colored inks, watercolor, and gouache. Here I've actually added too much water, which is why the yellow is not that opaque. You can see the magenta showing through. But it's still opaque enough in the sense that you can tell at a glance this is yellow. This is not yellow mixed with magenta. If you want more opacity, just use more paint or less water or add more white. So earlier on I mentioned using Posca markers to add little details like this. However, if you want to paint over larger areas, such as creating strokes like this, it would be very challenging to use a Posca marker to do so because the tip is so small. Your marker will also run out of paint very quickly because there is not a lot of paint in the markers to begin with. Interestingly, there are no cadmium blues and cadmium greens, so if you need opaque blues or greens, you would have to go with gouache. So for example, if I wanted to paint some green leaves over whatever that is here, I would have to use gouache. And this is painted with gouache, and these are painted with gouache as well. To paint something like this with watercolor is very easy. You just have to paint yellow followed by red. To paint this, you definitely need to use opaque colors, opaque watercolor or the cadmium colors or gouache. Because to do this only with watercolor, transparent watercolor, it would mean you have to use masking fluid to create all these patterns. It's very tedious. Let me know in the comment section whether you use cadmium colors and what you use these colors for. I actually have a few friends who sign their names on their paintings using cadmium colors.